And take a good look at this, because you're not going to see this too often. Maybe never again. Flightline.
What is up? I'm Jared Welch. He's Aaron Halterman. It is Thursday, November 10th, and this is Blinkers Off. What's up, man?
What's up? Everything going well with you? Everything you're home post Breeders' Cup. How's it going?
It's been great. I was kind of telling you off air. I've literally been on dad duty since pretty much right as soon as I got back. And so I haven't really had a ton of time, or really wanted to be honest with you, to kind of look back into the Breeders' Cup stuff. And so I took a little bit of a break, got back into it today, went back through it all, and kind of, look at the analysis of a little, after having a little fresh break, looked at all of the races again, and I thought that was pretty helpful. So I'm interested to get back into this with you and see kind of what your thoughts have been now that we've had 5 days to kind of digest this.
Yeah, for sure. I think now it's taking it, and how we're going to move forward off of it. What lessons did we learn, handicapping wise, betting wise? Who do we like coming up now that it's over and we're projecting on now to 2023 basically. So yeah, a lot to unpack, a lot with the juveniles. I think will be fun to go through. I'm going to give out some special awards for some of the horses as well. So we've got a lot to get into actually today.
And I don't know about you. I mean, maybe, you don't have kids. I'm tired. Like, I have not caught up from our trip because I've been on go since, with school and all the things that accompany a week of having two little boys. So yeah, I'm exhausted still. Like, I feel like I have not caught up from our trip. Do you feel rejuvenated yet?
No, not at all. I think anytime you're in the horse racing business, when it's the Breeders' Cup or it is the Kentucky Derby, you definitely get that hangover, and it definitely takes a week to kind of get over it. I think you see it even with fans; they're kind of a little bit fatigued after that. They'll come back about Friday when the big racing starts to come back. But yeah, everybody needs a few days to kind of detox from that one, and it's such a massive event. You got 14 of the best races we have all year, all packed into 2 days. And yeah, it's a lot, man. It's a lot.
Plus we're old, that plays a factor now. We don't recover like we used to, we used to, not to mention lack of sleep, working our asses off, but lots and lots and lots and lots of alcohol was consumed in a matter of 4 days. And so it was, that's been, I think my body, I don't know, but my body feels like it needs a complete, just like flushed out. I need to go on what are those called? Like a little, liquid diet type thing. I need to get on some sort of digestion diet so I can kind of clear out the system, because I think we drink enough alcohol to cover for the rest of the year.
There's no doubt. Yeah, you definitely need to reset the palate, so to speak, cleanse the soul, maybe a little bit.
That too. Yeah, we had fun
with that part of it, but yeah, for sure.
If you saw us downtown Saturday night, I apologize. So, or you're welcome. However you want to look at that.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, we had fun. It was a good trip. Good Breeders' Cup. Yeah, lots to talk about, from performances that were unbelievable, say like Flightline and a few of these turf races, and to ones that were left scratching our heads and wondering what do you do with these horses, and kind of the disappointing aftermath of some of these. So I want to get into, oh, by the way, dude, so we get home. It was like 20 minutes before kickoff, Sunday Night Football Chiefs game. And I'm thinking, we'll play the Titans. I'm tired. I've been driving all day. I'm just going to chill out, turn the game on and just enjoy it, And I got the exact opposite of that.
Yeah.
I told you, I said, I feel like my hangover is getting worse as this game progresses, because it was getting tighter and tighter, and it felt like it was just, you could go either way. That game, dude, how do you, real quickly, because I'm from the Chiefs kingdom, I've seen a lot of mixed. Do you look at that game as a negative or a positive for the Chiefs?
Positive. They won. And I think that's in the NFL, that's really all that matters week to week. So it's positive. They won. Yeah. I mean, the Chiefs are wildly mediocre everywhere but two positions. That's my thoughts on the Chiefs. And the two positions they're not mediocre in, they're fantastic. And so that makes up for a ton of issues and problems. Will it be in, can Mahomes and Kelsey kind of carry them all the way to a Super Bowl? I'm not sure, but they make up for a ton of issues that the Chiefs have.
Well, Mahomes is just, it's not, I mean, you just run out of words to talk about him. I mean, what he does. I mean, he literally put that game on his back the whole game, frankly. Even whenever he couldn't get anything done with receivers, he was running the ball. He had like 70 yards rushing, a touchdown, and a 2-point conversion. Like, he literally had to get that game tied himself. And I think that I looked at it as two different ways. Like, yeah, I think they won, and the way they won was a real gutty win. They kind of played that Titans type football that usually gets them beat in a game like that. The Titans, for whatever reason, have our number. In the regular season, especially. But I love the way they gutted it out. But on the flip side, yeah, you do wonder, like Mahomes he can't throw the ball 65 times or whatever it was every game. And you can't, you rely on, like, he can't be your leading rusher every game either. So there were some concerns, I think, there as well. But like you said, in the NFL, plus you got Josh Allen. I saw him get some injury situation happening maybe with his arm. So that all of a sudden, and with them losing last week, I mean, this AFC is wide open for that number 1 seed. So anything can happen. Anyways, just wanted your take on that, because I personally felt great about it. And it was on as soon as that game was over, I literally crashed on the couch because I think my emotions and my body was just ready to just be done with that day and be done with that game.
I can see why. Yeah, that was definitely a stressful one. And, I think in the first half, they just weren't quite ready on defense. And then they were getting the stops like you thought they would get, and the offense couldn't score. And so, yeah, it was wild. But yeah, that is now very wide open. Who knows what's going to happen with Josh Allen? We'll just have to see if he plays this week. Because if he's not there, they're not going to be very good either. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all shakes out.
Yeah, I mean, that's two teams there, Chiefs and the Bills, who are wildly not great without their two quarterbacks. There's no doubt about that. All right, let's get this. Is not a sports show. It's a horse racing show. We got a ton to talk about from the Breeders' Cup. Our final thoughts about what we learned from the 2022 Breeders' Cup. We're going to recap the 39th annual Breeders' Cup World Championships from Keeneland. What were some of the best performances? What were some of the worst performances? What betting wins did we have? What mistakes were made in that department? Is Flightline the best horse of all time? We'll get into that. We'll answer a ton of questions. Whatever you have, make sure you hit us in the chat. Let's go. Let's do this. I'm excited to get this going. I've been anxiously awaiting this I haven't digested this Breeders' Cup with anybody yet, so I need to get it out there.
Yes, for sure. I'm ready for it to be over. I've talked about it 100 times.
Move on, right?
Yeah.
It was great, but it's time to.
Mm-hmm.
That's the other thing too. You have a lot of these horses. We'll talk about the classic division, like in the Pegasus coming up. Like, who's going to run the Pegasus? I mean, they're all either retiring or, Epicenter's hurt. Taba, I guess, is he the horse? I don't know. So it seems like all these horses are leaving us with questions on who the hell are we going to have left to run here as they turn 4. Some of these horses turn 4 and obviously go into the next season. All right, we're going to run through these one by one, and some of them we'll go in more depth than others. Just kind of how we felt about each Breeders' Cup race.
Let's do it.
All right. The 39th annual Breeders' Cup World Championships is a wrap. It's a hell of a time from Keeneland. We had 14 Breeders' Cup races that were just for all over the place in terms of upsets and favorites winning and horses you thought would win, horses you had no idea would win, all across the board. We're going to go through each and every one of these races that we saw. Let's kick things off with Friday's Juvenile Turf Sprint. This was race 6. And, Love Reigns was our pick, was a lot of people's pick, was the favorite of the race. And honestly, it's kind of a trend. It feels like, in this kind of race, you knew this race was over for her pretty quick when she wasn't fast enough to get to the lead or anywhere close to the lead, and then kind of got swallowed up.
This race was over when they drew all the speed to the outside. It really made things a mess. Just really interesting how it all broke down, how it all kind of played out. I liked Magical Mischief. I used on a pick 5 ticket. I couldn't have got that horse to win though, as far as a top pick, because I just didn't think it would play out exactly like that. And again, the speed kind of just made everything crazy in this race. I really liked Private Creed in a pace meltdown, and he ran well, but he got third. And the Europeans finally get it done for the Juvenile Turf Sprint.
Yeah, we bucked all the trends here. That's what made it hard. Came from way out of it, and Euros won. So it's like it really ran 1-2 even. So it made it tough to even get to this horse, like you said. Although I gotta say, Buick had a few amazing rides over the 2 days, and this was definitely one of them. This was a fantastic ride, I thought, on Mischief Magic to kind of wait and then angle out and get that run late. I thought it was a really nice, patient ride for Buick here.
Oh, there's no doubt. I think the ride kind of won the race, and the horse has to accelerate when you give the horse the chance to do it, and he did. So give credit to Magical Mischief. But yeah. Or Mischief Magic, I should say, but it was really incredible to watch him. Sometimes I think we make too much of, you need a local jockey. When you got great jockeys, they can ride anywhere. And yeah, it was really impressive. And it had to feel good for the European contingent to get this one. This was one they hadn't won yet. And so to get home a winner here to kick it off, and it was just foreshadowing for what it was going to be. My goodness, did the European horses run extremely, extremely well. And in many cases, not only they won, but they also were getting in those second and third spots as well.
All over the place. They won every turf race you could, except for one. We'll get to that one coming up, which was hard to even fathom that one. But yeah, you're right. I think this race, I don't know, like the bummers of this race, you could call them, is obviously, Tyler's Tribe. That was a head scratcher alone to even be in this race. Got vanned off. That was unfortunate. The Platinum Queen was the horse that I really liked, kind of besides Love Reigns, and that horse did not fire whatsoever. Got smoked. So those were some. It was one of those races that, like you said, once the speed drew where it did, it just made the race kind of hard to predict on how they would come out of the gate, and then from then you kind of knew some of these horses were in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, Tyler's Tribe actually bled during the race. So that's why he was kind of pulled up and vanned off. Kind of some controversy there, but about why do we continue to do this no Lasix thing when this is, horses bleeding is very easy to control with a drug that is legal. So I can't explain why we keep doing this stupidity. It's hard enough to try to predict if a horse is going to show up or not, let alone, hey, now he's off Lasix, will he bleed or not? So that was unfortunate. They worked hard to get him there, and then that happens. But yeah, overall, look, this wins the award. I'm going to give out awards for a lot of these races. We'll just say this wins the award for race we'll never really remember. in like 2 years, we will not even remember this race, I have a feeling.
The Dundee Award for the most forgettable race of the Breeders' Cup is that one. And it was the first one, so it's easy to forget. Let's go to the next one on Friday, race 7. Juvenile Fillies. Halterman, you and I were both pretty, actually, I think the entire team, maybe you said Samich, was pretty heavy on let's try to beat Chocolate Gelato here. Makes a lot of sense as a favorite. But hang on, Chop Chop gets hammered in this race, actually goes off the favorite. And sure enough, we were right to bet against the favorite, only we picked Chop Chop. because we didn't think Chop Chop would come off as a favorite. Certainly didn't think the horse would run this bad. I mean, the horse was awful. Chocolate Gelato, Chop Chop run last and second to last here. Wonder Wheel comes from off of it and just really looks good. T-Gaff gets his first Breeders' Cup win. I looked at this race and thought, maybe we just overthought this one. Like, Wonder Wheel has been really good, and Wonder Wheel continued to look really good in the field that is maybe not that great anyways.
I just think it was a situation and something that we can really take from this. As handicappers, we always get caught up on pace and race shape and stuff like that. When they're 2-year-olds, they don't really have an established running line form yet, right? So Wonder Wheel was one that I played on a saver ticket for a pick 5, but I didn't put in an exactas or tries because I thought this horse would get kind of burned up by the pace. This horse had been on the lead.
Yeah.
Came from 11th in the spot. So what happened? The pace melted down, but she showed a different tactic, and you would never think that's going to happen. And I think with 2-year-olds, sometimes they don't really even know how they want to run or where they want to be. They just kind of fall into place. And so pace handicapping, I think with 2-year-olds really makes that tough. And I feel like that's what happened in this spot. And, you talk about Chop Chop, who was horrible. Wonder Wheel was behind Chop Chop early on in this race, which is just crazy to think because we thought Wonder Wheel would be up on the lead. So again, I think when it comes to pace, don't absolutely mark a horse off because you might think they're against, the pace, because they might be versatile and you just don't know it yet because they haven't been asked to do it.
When I went back and watched this one today, I couldn't. I know we talked about it the day of course, and saw it, but man, Rosario really rode Chop Chop like she was going to be the best horse of the field by far. I mean, she was wide the whole way around, never had any interest in getting the horse tucked in or anything, which if you remember from her last race, one of the reasons why I liked her so much was she got into so much trouble and was kind of weaving in and out and doing her thing. And then this time it's like he kept her wide the whole way and obviously just had zero kick late. I think that, obviously took a lot out of her. So that was weird to me. And then Raging Sea as a horse, I look back at this and think, I think Raging Sea is the best horse of this group. It's just, we have not been able to see her run kind of a normal race from a normal post position. She looks really talented. And that's one of those, I think, when I look forward to this moving forward, she's one that I really want to keep an eye on.
She kind of feels like she might be a Zandon type for the Fillies next year,
Always running okay, but I know you have that.
Yeah, I think she's going to progress pretty well. I think she's going to be a pretty nice horse. This was another big story. The post positions, a lot of times we make too big of a deal out of it, but they really told the story of some of these races here. The 13 and the 14 get second and third, but couldn't work out trips quite good enough. I know the 13 got out to the front and that kind of helped, but and in the last race, all the speed to the outside made for a weird race shape. So yeah, I mean, this is one. The one thing I'll tell you, I look back and watch this. The winner is really good. I thought the winner ran fantastic in here. So Wonder Wheel, one I didn't love going into the race, coming out of it, it's like, yeah, that's a pretty impressive effort to win by that many lengths.
And back-to-back brilliant rides, this time by T-Gaff, like I mentioned. I mean, that just to have the patience, and I don't know, if that was the plan all along, to have the horse sit that far back, but the way this horse kind of did, and then of course kind of just scooted up the rail in the turn and then kicked out like that was a very professional effort from a 2-year-old, a very patient and professional effort by the jockey, I thought. So there were some jockeys put on a clinic at the Breeders' Cup, and this was one of them, I thought, for sure.
Tyler Gaffleon's first win in a Breeders' Cup race as well. That was good to see. He was really celebrating, so that was impressive.
Do you have an award for this race, or are we moving on?
Most boring race award.
I agree. And what's funny is that was the 1-5 favorite for that award before the race. So
yeah, it definitely turned out to be, for sure.
It lived up to the hype, or non-hype, I should say. All right, let's go to the next race, race 8, the Juvenile Fillies Turf. Meditate, a horse that I think I know I tried to beat. I tried to beat the horse. You did too. definitely was wrong on this one. Ryan Moore, Meditate. Obviously the Euros continued the dominance, and you just look at Aiden O'Brien, what he did over the weekend. Another horse, another really, really nice ride, and just a clear standout as they ran this race.
This one gets the award for most surprising horse of the Breeders' Cup Award for me. Not that this horse won, but the dominance that this horse won by. Meditate was awesome in this race. Really didn't think she would stretch out and improve, but she did. She absolutely dominated this group. Again, I was not expecting mid-stretch to think, well, there's no doubt who's winning this one, and that was Meditate. So, yeah, I'll go ahead and give the award out. The most surprising horse to me of the Breeders' Cup was Meditate. And again, not because of the win, because the way she did it, it was really, really impressive.
Just beat the shit. I mean, and like you said, like the longer they went in that race, the better she looked. She just kept extending. It was a really nice effort. Another really patient ride. But, and I look back, Free Look was the horse that you and I picked. I think a lot of us like this horse, obviously. The horse was never going to win. Let's make that clear. But the horse definitely had some major traffic issues in the stretch. Finally got some run. I think the horse ran better than sixth or whatever. But definitely was not a threat here whatsoever. And honestly, I looked at this and just thought it's Meditate, and then it was everybody else. Like, I really don't care.
We're not great, are we, with these turf horses, these juveniles right now? Mm-hmm. I mean, this was not a good effort from any of them. Like I said, a couple of them had some trouble, but moving forward, and maybe we can remember these horses that were in this race, and moving forward, think, okay, when they get in regular stakes, well, here's a new shooter. Well, maybe we can go with the new shooter who might be a bigger price than some of these that are established. I was not impressed with the rest of the field at all, because Meditate was under wraps. Like, it's not like she was all out in this spot.
No, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Meditate again next year. Obviously as a 3-year-old, but into this division, because this is she looks like the horse. I mean, she ran like a horse is a legit horse that's going to be running in a lot of big races overseas, of course, and then hopefully we get to see her back. But yeah, I looked at, this is, to me, it's Meditate, and then anything else underneath that, I don't really care.
Yeah.
All right, main race of the day. Actually, you know what? These last two, but honestly, the race of the day was the race after this. But on paper, the race of the day, race 9, the FanDuel Breeders' Cup Juvenile, of course, 4 2-year-olds, and not, leading up to the Kentucky Derby, with points on the line here as well. Cave Rock went off as a monster favorite, 2-5, 3-5. Just got smoked and we knew this horse would be that low of odds, and we still thought no way this horse can lose. Forte gets the job done. National Treasure runs 3rd, Cave Rock 2nd. When I look back at this race, to me it was, and you can tell you tell me if I'm wrong, but I just felt like this was more about Cave Rock not running what we expected, or at least what he's been running, versus Forte being like this unbelievable monster.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think Forte improved slightly off of his last race at Keeneland that he won, where he battled Loggins all the way in the stretch. But I'm with you. It was more about Cave Rock didn't show. And he didn't run just awful, but he didn't have any acceleration. He didn't have any kick. He didn't have any, I'm going to get away from the rest of these horses. He slightly started to put away National Treasure, a bit. And then it was just like, he's kind of running in place. I kind of described it. He looked like he kind of was tied up in knots the whole race. Even he didn't look very fluid. He didn't have that motion that we had seen from him. And then he didn't change his leads, and it was just just kind of a disaster of a race a little bit. And then, like you said, with Forte, I don't think you can underestimate his move that he made. That was a big time move. That was a move, when you scale back, you see it. It's like he's going to win type of move. But yeah, I'm with you. I think Cave Rock just didn't quite bring it, and Forte brought it plus some.
It was not like at first, and for half a second, it kind of looked like he wasn't going to fire at all. Yeah, Forte, that is. He kind of seemed like he was getting kind of slow, getting going there in the turn. And then, like you said, once he And I do think once he, there's a little bit of a visual effect in terms of Cave Rock not firing as well, and so it kind of looked better than maybe it really was. But yeah, he's a real deal, Forte. That is Cave Rock. I agree with you everything you said. I just it's like you kept waiting for him to. There's nothing about the replay that I saw where I'm like, okay, that was a legit excuse, or that happened, or this happened. Like I felt like he was ridden great. I thought Hernandez rode him like he was going to win by 5 or 10. Like it was nothing major. They weren't going ultra fast, especially not Cave Rock standards. And honestly, for a second, National Treasure got up there close to him. You kind of thought, okay, these two are just going to run away with this thing. Like they're going to move past this field. And they just stopped. And then Forte just kind of picked up where they kind of left off, so to speak. So yeah. I think what was saw the question. I believe it was 100 buyer he got for this race.
No, it was in the 90s. 92, I want to say, or 94.
No, the winner. Forte.
92 or 94, I want to say.
Was it that low?
real quick. Let's see.
Well, either way, I mean, I definitely nothing. I didn't think it came back. Here you go. It's 400. You got 100 even.
Is the 100? Okay.
83 for Wonder Wheel.
Maybe that's what I was thinking of. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, 100 for Forte. K Rock had been running. K Rock like a 104 or something last time out. Before that, obviously, Forte kind of ran maybe a little bit better than normal. But I don't know. To me, what are you doing with these two moving forward? And I guess you can throw in National Treasure because he's obviously a horse that's trained by Baffert and is going to be in a lot of these big races. But these top three, before the race, we kind of thought there were several in here that had a chance at being, legit Derby type contenders. So what are you doing with a bunch of these?
I think the top two are legit Derby type contenders, and I don't think the rest of them are. I don't love National Treasure. I think he might be like a, sham winner, Robert B. Lewis winner. So I think he kind of, that's the ceiling there. He kind of reminds me of Newgrange a little bit. I think he might be that kind. The fourth place finisher, Blazing Sevens, maybe kind of get him going. He didn't run horribly, but I think really the top two are the really serious ones. I think they're both number one and number two. I would put Forte 1, Cave Rock 2 going into this. I haven't seen anybody else going 2 turns yet that I'm really excited about. Some prospects that have went 1 turn that we're going to see what they do next time out. It's a whole different ball game when you stretch out. But for right now, I've got Forte 1 and Cave Rock 2. I will say, though, I have Forte. I have given an award to Forte. And I believe he is the horse most likely to flame out after the Florida Derby. Forte would win that award for me. He just has Florida Derby winner and then 8th in the Kentucky Derby, and we never see him again written all over him.
It's oddly specific award you just gave.
We've seen it 100 times with that Florida Derby winner.
I mean, going into the race, I kind of thought that Cave Rock's going to roll because that's what that's what he does, especially Baffert as a 2-year-old. And Forte is kind of the horse that's going to have that January to April run. That's kind of what I was envisioning. So you got to assume that he's going to come back, but and run well a few races. But I don't necessarily disagree. He's a nice horse though right now. Not to mention you have Cave Rock, but just to mention a couple others, you had Baffert who brought a couple more over to run in some of these 2-year-old races as well on the undercard. And you had Arabian Lion who finished second to Giant Mischief early in the card on Friday. And then on Saturday, you had a kind of a freaky performance from Arabian Night who won by over 7. Both, of course, owned by Zidane, same as Taba. Big purchase horses, obviously trained by Bob Baffert. So 2 more 2-year-olds trained by Bob Baffert. Wouldn't be surprised if one of those 2 end up surpassing Cave Rock at some point as 3-year-olds.
Yeah, that's kind of on the list. If they haven't went 2 turns yet, but let's see what they do when they're able to go 2 turns. And yeah, throw in the Brad Cox horse you mentioned as well. There's 3 right there that look pretty darn good. Asmussen debuted a good 1-turn horse at that Keeneland meet as well, not on Breeders' Cup weekend, but at the Keeneland meet. So there's some that are there, and there's some that are kind of lurking. And again, when you project these juveniles, I know last year we immediately after the race, we just did not think that juvenile was very good. I remember Storm the Courts year. We didn't think that juvenile was very good. I think we got a blend here. I think the top ones are pretty decent out of there. But if you're not facing those top ones in those next round of prep races, don't be afraid to take a little bit of a price on kind of the horse that didn't make the Breeders' Cup, but he's coming on in the right time during the 3-year-old season, because I did not really love much else out of that race other than those top 2. And then maybe the next 2 we'll see. We'll just see where they're spotted.
Yeah, I mean, based off past trends, more overwhelmingly trends anyways, that we'll see a Derby runner. Forte would be a horse that will make it to the Derby. And I think it seems like that would, even though he might flame out, as you said, or he'll probably have enough points to get in, you would assume. So he seems like that trend will kind of get back on tracks this coming up year. All right, let's go to what I feel like was the race of the day. Turned out to be the race of the day, the juvenile turf. This dude was awesome. Victoria Road, Silver Knot, just nose to nose at the wire. Both of them had kind of brutal trips, especially Silver Knot, who just came flying late, and Victoria Road did the same thing. Like it was one of those, it finally felt good. I had a big cash on this one. It finally felt good to kind of see those 2 horses kind of skirt clear of the field and feel like, all right, we got one. This is what we thought that would happen in this race.
Boy, there were some anxious moments, though, during 99% of that race. I mean, this was incredible. The trip Silver Knot got was not great, and he finally got loose, looked like he was going to win, and Victoria Road was able to kind of nose him out there at the wire in a fantastic effort. Another race where our horses just weren't good from American side of things. Neither one of these horses got great trips, right? And they were still able to finish 1-2 in this race. Kind of shows you just how much better they were than everybody else in here. You're right. It was a great race. Unfortunately, moving forward, I don't know where we'll see these horses next. Probably not in the United States for a while, at least until the bigger races come around. Maybe they come back. But this is another one from American betting standpoint. I don't know if I want these horses that finish behind, because they didn't look too good. But these 2 Europeans were fantastic.
No, I don't think you really do. You can't, like you said, like the trips were not good. Like even though Silver Knots was worse, Victoria Road certainly didn't get a great trip either. They very patient rides by both. Once again, Ryan Moore, William Buick just put on clinics on the turf over here in the United States. They were really impressive rides on both those horses. Well, that's the thing. Like other than Caravel, which we'll get to here in a sec. These Euro horses and these Euro trainers, like even the ones that didn't win, like you mentioned earlier, like there was plenty of U.S. horses that didn't show up. When these Euros come over, man, like they bring it, and you can almost depend on them every time to run. For instance, this race, I played a $50 exacta box. 1-4. I was like, I think these are the 2 best horses. And yeah, I got lucky with the trips, but basically them able to get through the trips, I should say, but you felt like they would run the race, and they did. Like they were the best horses of the race. And when you can return $700 off of that kind of wager off of these 2 Euros, it's like, well, that was easy because these are clearly the 2 best horses of the race.
Well, you say you got lucky with the trips, you got unlucky with the trips, and you still cashed it. And so that's exactly right. I mean, they were just much the best. And listen, you got to talk about Charlie Appleby, because what he's doing is not normal. This is incredible. And trust me, I realize the quality of horse he has is really spectacular. To come over here and they all fire is fantastic. And he didn't win this one, but he probably had the best horse in this one. But he won other ones. Every horse he brings over here runs, and it's really quite incredible. And then you got Aiden O'Brien, and he's just the mainstay, man. I mean, He just brings it, he brings the cavalry charge over here. He lines them up, and you're right. You can always count on him at the Breeders' Cup as well to fire with his horses. I mean, always is a strong word, but most of the time they come over here and they fire.
And we'll get to that point. I have some lessons. It wasn't all good betting. We'll get to that for Saturday because there's some lessons I learned as well. That's the thing. You're always learning, right, in this game.
Mm-hmm.
Even whenever you feel like you know it all from a betting standpoint or whatever. I learned a lot on Saturday. I kind of got humbled a little bit. And I want to talk about that coming up here in a second. But that was the end of – okay, do you have an award for this?
The award for this one, I looked back through them all. I'm going to say the most exciting race award was this one. This was super exciting for the whole time because you knew those horses were in some trouble. So say you bet against them, you felt good. You felt like, oh man, I may get away with one here. The favorites are boxed in, this and that. And then it was the anxious moments of the holes were open, but they were small and you got to go through them or not. You didn't know. And then when they pull away, it's like, who's going to win between the two? For me, this was the most exciting race.
This was fun too. We had just kind of gotten deflated. We went out and watched Cave Rock not win outside, and we came back in. We were watching the races up at the BCBC room with Samich and Dr. Tang, and of course us and Magic, and we all had something, whether it be the exacta or the winner or whatever. We all had something on this result, and so our table just went nuts when this result happened, and they kind of skirted home, and you knew you had it because it had been that kind of day. And so this was like it felt like we ended the day strong. We did end the day strong, and it was like, you know what, we had a tough day, but we finally kind of got some momentum going into tomorrow. And then tomorrow happened. So let's get to tomorrow, meaning Saturday's racing. And there's Arabian Night. Let's kick off with race 3, the filly and mare sprint. And Halterman, all this speed signed on in this race. We thought, you know what, this is going to be an unbelievable pace meltdown. Obligatory is going to be just seemingly going to be flying home. And then Echo Zulu decided, you know what, we're not going to sit off, or we are not going to go. We're going to sit off a little bit. And I thought that was an incredible effort. Goodnight Olive set off, obviously, as well. But the pace wasn't unbelievably fast. The second fraction was. But really, those two horses sitting off kind of limited what Obligatory could do turning for home.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just it. I mean, Obligatory didn't show up with a very good race, but the pace wasn't just crazy. However, it did kind of melt down. The top 3 finishers weren't around the top 3 horses when for the early running were not around at the end, but it was the stalkers that got the job done. You mentioned Echo Zulu changed tactics and was able to get second here. Wicked Halo kind of stalked the pace for third. And then of course the winner, Goodnight Olive, also a stalker. And wow, she was just much, much, much the best. This was probably other than Flightline, the easiest looking winner of the lot. You never really thought she was going to lose down the stretch. And like I said, those deeper closers, CC and Obligatory, they still made up ground, but the stalkers didn't come back to them. And so they finish in 4th and 5th. So God, just give credit to Goodnight Olive. My goodness, she has turned into a superstar.
Yeah, what is that, like 6 in a row or something for Goodnight Olive?
I mean
she's been incredible. That was a really nice performance. And with CC, I thought CC, I picked CC to win. I loved the price, 11-1. I'd probably play her again at that price. I thought she ran like I wanted her to run. She just didn't have the kick that she normally, has had in years past. And obviously, I think maybe just the age and is getting a little bit to her. But turning for home, it looked like for a second, like, okay, here you go. Like she's going to come try to get them. And at 11-1, it was she had a nice effort. Wicked Halo, I thought drawing that 11 post. I thought T-Gaff had a really nice ride with her and kind of tucked her in and it was like, I went back, watched the replay, and I was like, how is it that CC's wide and Wicked Halo's on the rail? Like, I thought that was a really smart ride from T-Gaff to kind of get as much out of her as he could.
Yeah, I thought it was great. He did a really good job on that horse as well. Listen, I just think end of the day, like CC, Obligatory, they Echo, Wicked, they all fired. They all kind of did. If you bet them, it's like, that's kind of what I wanted from them. They were just not as good as Goodnight Olive. And that horse, I just have been shocked at the level of improvement she just keeps showing race after race.
Yeah, I mean that. And let's be clear, like she didn't just win; she dusted them. I mean, that was a very professional effort for a horse that kind of seemingly is in the toughest race of her career. Each race, right? Yeah, each race they run, it's tougher than the last, and she just keeps showing up. And yeah, I do think Echo Zulu is another one you can't quite write off, given that post position as well. I thought she ran well. I thought she ran really well, frankly, and showed a little bit of a new dimension that she doesn't need to get on that pace and still kind of track. And she ran well. She just clearly was second best. But if they just, is she going to stick around, like for next year?
I've heard that, yeah, I'm pretty sure they're bringing her back, and Wicked Halo will be back as well. So there's a couple of good little sprinters there. Goodnight Olive, they announced today, also will be back. So it sounds like the top 3 are coming back.
Well, that's a good division then, heading into next year. Any award here before we move on?
The award for She Strangled Him goes to Goodnight Olive and trainer Chad Brown. The Strangle Him Award.
The what?
The Strangle Them Award.
Okay. Just strangled him. All right.
Yeah. Turned for home and she had him by the neck and she strangled him.
It's like Scranton Strangler. All right. Got it.
Right, exactly.
Let's go to the next race. Race 4. Here we go. This is pretty much the biggest doozy of the 2 days. The turf sprint. I think we all knew, right? We knew the horse would go gate to wire in this race. Like that's what we expected to happen. We just didn't expect that the horse we thought would do it would break last due to some maybe questionable gate tactics. We'll talk about that. But Caravel, she got it done at 40, almost 43-1, went gate to wire. And I think that was, to me, the ultimate, obviously Golden Pal not breaking, you knew pretty quick, hey, we ain't going to hit this one. But the fact that she won gate to wire was like the ultimate stab in the back. She's like, really? She won gate to wire? Like, then Golden Pal, I felt like even more confident Golden Pal would have got it done. This was a disappointment from the start. Really one of those that you knew we weren't cashing from the moment they broke.
Well, first of all, let's give credit to the winner because she ran a gutty race. I mean, that was just fantastic, and she deserves credit. She does. I mean, that's not easy to go out there and take them gate to wire. A filly beating the boys. Really, really, really impressed with how she was able to do it. So major credit goes to her. Now, let's get to the BS situation of it. If she can take him gate to wire, you would think Golden Pal could have taken them gate to wire. Why was there not even a look at this? Why not an inquiry into this? He was being held at the gate. I don't get it. Why didn't we even look at this? I mean, I don't understand. And I didn't see the replay until we got home that night. And, I just assumed he didn't break well. And you watch it, it's like, there's definitely a case he could have been a non-runner in this race.
Yeah. The gate assistant or whatever was holding them whenever they broke. So
nobody else was.
And it became pretty clear that once they broke and the horse was last, I mean, you're like, what happened? And like you said, he thought, because he had issues of maybe somewhat, depending on who you ask, of not breaking great. And so you kind of assumed that's what happened. Then he looked again. Well, he couldn't go. His head went sideways and then he went. So that's the thing. Yeah, it's a bummer that you couldn't even see. And the connections have to be just super. If they're seeing what we see, super irate that happened like that.
I just don't get it. And if there's an inquiry and they determine it that he wasn't held, it's like, well, at least they looked at it. But for you, if you bet Golden Pal, if you singled Golden Pal, which I did, you watch that replay, it's like, how does that give you confidence, in the stewards? Because this is the biggest weekend of our season. At least act like you're looking at it, at least check into it. Why is the best breaking horse in our country last? At least take a look. And I don't get it. And maybe they look at it and go, well, his hand was there, but he wasn't held or something like that. I mean, I live with it, but I don't know. I just thought that was very odd. And when they didn't throw up the inquiry sign, I just assumed, well, he stumbled or whatever. And I didn't think anything of it till we got back to watching the replay. So I don't get it.
I mean, and people might say, well, who cares? Well, if he's declared a non-starter, you get your money back. So, I mean, that would have been helpful in a situation that we bet a big win bet on him, thinking he couldn't lose. So, I mean, I'm watching the replay, and I just go, if you guys just go to Twitter or something, you guys can search for it, and you can see a lot of posts about it. It's pretty clear. It feels like that he's being held. And I'm also kind of surprised. I didn't hear any kind of bitching or complaining from Irad about it. I don't know if you've seen that, but like you would think there'd been more conversations about why he didn't break.
Yeah, you would think. And maybe, and like I said, maybe at the end of the day, Irad knew that it wasn't that big a deal, and he wasn't getting held. I don't know. But again, it was an unfortunate thing. So this one wins the award for dumbest race of the Breeders' Cup, because you knew, well, everything we talked about, everything we were looking for. It's like, well, this is just a wide open scramble now, and you got what you got, right? And here's the other thing, and like you mentioned it, you kind of briefly mentioned it. We tried to look at this and go, well, okay, I think Golden Pal can be beat in the spot, right? But then the more you handicap, you're like, well, there's no really great horse in the race. And that was proven to be true, because as good as Carvel ran, a good horse is going to run her down, and they couldn't.
Yeah.
And so that makes it even worse. It's like, yeah, all he had to do was have his normal trip. They weren't going to catch him in the spot.
No, I mean, no one would have caught him, because, like you said, no one could catch Carvel. No one's catching Golden Pal. And you look back at Cave Rock, say, for instance, that was one of those where you're just like, you're upset, obviously, but at the same time, you're like, listen, he just didn't run. But in this case, when you feel like he never even got his chance, that's what's irritating about it. Yep. When you know that you can they break and you can start walking back and know that you're not going to cash that ticket because of what happened. That's what's irritating about the result. But and like I said, the icing on the cake was, like, if there's like a total meltdown here, then that may be one thing. Or like Campanelli or someone runs like off the screen, then you're like, well, that would have been tough to beat. But in this case, when you have a 43-1 winner in Caravel who went gate to wire, that makes it even harder to kind of to stomach,
Salt on the wounds, for sure. And Dan made a good point here. Dan points out that he loved the 3 in this spot, but he didn't think the 10 had any chance of winning. And I'm with Dan. I thought the 3 had a shot if Golden Pal wasn't going to be the winner. And I thought the 3 was going to win most of the stretch and just could not get by the 10 Caravel. So yeah, a really interesting situation.
And I like the 1 Creative Force. When I saw that horse kind of taking off, I thought, oh, here this horse comes to kind of run them all down. Still couldn't get there either. So it's hard to believe Caravel held him off. But by the way, I also thought Highfield Princess was pretty disappointing here. For a horse another horse that I thought, if it's not going to be Golden Pal, I like Highfield Princess. Just didn't quite have it either. Another horse that just couldn't get to that winner.
Listen, this year's juvenile turf sprint I'm talking about was an anomaly. Usually the Europeans that sprint that come over here don't show up quite as well as the routers. And that's kind of what you saw from their best ones, their most hyped ones. They did not come over here and run very well in those sprints. Kind of the ones that were less hyped were the ones that ran well in those races.
Yeah, this has been another race that obviously, I always lean towards the U.S. horses because they usually dominate these sprints, the turf sprints, for the reason you're saying. And it kind of showcased the fact that, like you said, Caravel won. Another reason why you loved Golden Pal, and why the other result on Friday was so surprising, that you had a horse kind of come from way out of it and win from the Euro side. All right, let's go to race 5 on Saturday, the Big S Fans Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. Favorite, Cody's Wish. You watch this, and I don't know, but I watched the telecast version, the NBC version replay, and that was a really cool moment after he won, and just with Cody, who the horse is named after, who was a Make-A-Wish kid that was there, and just the reaction from that group, and just it was a feel-good moment for sure of the Breeders' Cup. I felt like, and it was even for us when we were there, we were showing him, and that was amazing to see. From a race standpoint, it was either Cyberknife or Cody's Wish. I think was pretty clear. A lot of people trying to beat Cody's Wish, and those two just threw it down late. But Cody's Wish, man, this horse is really good.
No doubt. This is the feel-good story of the Breeders' Cup Award. No doubt is Cody's Wish. He's turned into such a nice horse. I'm telling you, this was a great race. You go back and watch this race again and again. You described it best. They laid it down. Cody's Wish and Cyberknife get clear of these other horses. They were battling back and forth. Cody's Wish got ahead. Cyberknife got ahead. And then Cody's Wish there at the end to win by a head. Feel good story of the Breeders' Cup Award. Definitely this one. I can't say enough about the top two finishers here. Love them both. Hopefully both of them come back. I have no idea if either one of them are, but hopefully both of them keep running because they're nice horses.
Yeah, I'd heard rumblings that Cyberknife would be done after the Breeders' Cup, and that might be his swan song here. We'll see what they end up doing with him. He's turned into quite a horse, really. If you look at his start of this year, all the way to winning the Arkansas Derby, and then not doing anything in Kentucky Derby, but then continuing to run and run well in these big races, winning the Haskell, running well in the Travers. Just kind of showing up to a lot of these races, and has been a really nice horse all year. And Cody's Wish is one of those, looking back, it's one of those that you felt like you needed to try to beat. And honestly, you needed to try to feel like you needed to beat both Cody's Wish and Cyberknife. But then you look back and you're like, what, that was pretty dumb, because these two horses are clearly a lot better than the rest.
Clearly. I mean, yeah. And I had Cyberknife on top, Cody's Wish second. And that was the story of my Breeders' Cup. I always had it where I just needed to flip it kind of, and it would be fine. But yeah, I thought Cyberknife was going to dominate, and he kind of did, turning for home, but Cody's Wish was right there with him. They kind of dominated the rest of them, but I thought Cyberknife was going to be tough as nails, turning for home, and Cody's Wish was able to get him. Great race.
All right. Feel good of the Breeders' Cup. I completely agree with that. All right. Let's go to race 6, the filly and mare turf. And, this was one of those that another case where we thought we could beat the favorite Nashua. We were right. We were wrong and right, very much so, in this race. And that was, again, another story of the Breeders' Cup. But honestly, this one, I look back and kicking myself, because the closer this, I did use Tuesday in my top 4 and a horse that I liked underneath. But the closer we got, and obviously as good as Aiden O'Brien had been, Ryan Moore had been riding, there's the way the horse looked, the way the horse was being bet, I kept having this feeling that Tuesday was going to run really, really well. And I also had this feeling that In Italian would do what we thought what she might do and run a really good race. It just couldn't quite hold off the winner. I hate to say that Regier was the horse that I thought would win. Awful pick, no doubt about it. But I really wanted to play a 5-9 over 11 straight exacta, because I really thought one of those two horses would win and kind of edge out of the Italian. So this is kind of the start of my either wanted to bet, did not bet, or bet and shouldn't have bet stretch I had on Saturday at the Breeders' Cup. But Tuesday ran huge here for another win for Ryan Moore.
I bet In Italian, and it took a track record to beat her. And that's how I feel about this race. I thought she ran
huge. She ran really well.
Good. Ran way too fast early, but still ran so good. Like I said, new track record it took to beat her, and of course it happens. Yeah, listen, Tuesday, very, very good. Another European horse just runs its eyeballs out and beats one of ours, even one of ours that ran extremely well and just couldn't hold them off. Held off Nashua, a horse that I was, decided, look, I'm going to go against. I'm going to try to beat her. And I did beat her, and I still lost because Tuesday ran so well. Really good race for both these horses, though. I was really impressed with both of them. And Tuesday gets the award for worst named Breeders' Cup winner.
The call was kind of fun. Tuesday wins on a Saturday, but still it was Yeah, that's a really, I think it's a proper award. 22-1 you get on this exacted, which even is a killer because it's so gettable.
Yeah,
it's so gettable that I watching this after it was done, especially when you saw Rougier just backing up the whole race, basically.
Yeah,
I'm like, man, why didn't I not play that? Because you could, even though you didn't imagine it'd take a track record to beat her, it was definitely plausible where she's going to run a hell of a race and just get caught late. I think that was kind of what we hoped for, but we thought it would be Rougier to get it done. You kind of felt like that might be what happened here. And when this race finished, it was just I was really upset with myself for not playing this because I feel like I had a good feel for it. I just didn't play it.
And even if you're going to name a horse after a day, Tuesday, I would argue, is the worst day to name a horse after.
Nah, Monday would be the worst.
But Monday, at least it's kind of ironic, kind of funny. Tuesday is the forgotten day.
Is there a horse named Case of the Mondays? I feel like that would be a good horse name.
Case of the Mondays would be a great name for a horse. Yeah. But I have no idea if there is or isn't on that one. No clue.
All right, let's go to race 7. All right. So I told you the last race kicked off my bad betting stretch. Well, this continued it on and really giving that nice little explanation point to it. Race 7, the Breeders' Cup Sprint. Jackie's Warrior, the heavy favorite, kind of looked, had the Golden Pal feel as far as Cave Rock feel. Can't be beat here. You wanted to beat him. We thought Jack Christopher being here scratched out. So you wanted to beat him, but then thought, who can beat him here? He should have everything his own way, however he wants this race to unfold. And he kind of did. Looking back, I thought I've seen mixed opinions about the trip. That to me personally is how I wanted to see him run. I wanted to see him sit off of some cheap speed, which he did. And I guess you could argue the wide, he kind of had to make a choice there when they turned for home, go inside, go outside, got floated out. But ultimately, I don't think that cost him the race. He just didn't have that kick that we had seen from him. And it's really started his race prior. So maybe he just got tired at the end of the season. But yeah, definitely the biggest bummer. I'll tell you that. That's my award. Jackie's Warrior for sure.
I would agree. We'll give him that award. I don't think I need to give him one because you're right. It was not fun to watch him lose. Look, I'm an idiot for this because I had a feeling the whole time he was going to lose leading up to it. That's why I was so excited for Jack Christopher. And then he didn't run. And I just, like an idiot, said, oh, well, Jackie's Warrior will win now. I talked about Elite Power almost as much as Jackie's Warrior on all of our shows. And I should have just put Elite Power on top and didn't do it. This started a pick 5 that was cashed in though. So that's the good news. I did use Elite Power on this late pick 5 that cashed, but I should have just went ahead and made him the winner. I just felt like even though he hadn't faced anybody, he was running really, really well and was getting better with each start, where Jackie was starting to taper off just a bit. Live and you learn. But when you have a feeling in your stomach, he's going to lose, I just kind of have this feeling. And then your horse that you want to bet against him scratches, just try to go to somebody else. That's the best thing I could kind of say after this. And, turning for home, you knew it's like, yeah, he's not going to win. And then mid-stretch, it's like, maybe they're all just so bad that he is, but somebody's going to come up and get you in a Breeders' Cup race if you're not at your best.
He won, and that's the thing, David. He won 2 back, or I guess 3 back now, but in the Vanderbilt stocking, like it was go watch the Vanderbilt. It was probably the best race I feel like of the year for him, where he just kind of set off that cheap speed. It was I believe that horse that went out was that Doc Amster or something like that. But just blazed, and then he kind of set off and then pounced, and it just beat the shit out of the field. That's what you wanted. I thought I wanted to see here. I don't think him. I personally don't think there was anything. Whether he tried to go absolutely crazy up front or anything would have mattered. He just seems like a horse that's just too tired or something. Now it's just it's funny too. You're right, and that's one of my biggest. So I'll start off my lessons of my betting lessons of what I learned. this was the biggest bet, single, like straight up bet that I made the whole day, or whole 2 days, I should say, on the nose of a horse that I was trying to beat a week before. Okay. So that was like, and because in such I wanted to beat him with Jack Christopher, anyone really. And even a couple weeks before, I'm like, after that last one, where he got beat by Cody's Wish at Saratoga, it's like, I don't know if I can play him in the Breeders' Cup, right? I'm gonna try to beat him.
Yep. And
it just kept on coming back. Like, well, who's gonna beat him? I can't come up with a horse. I can't. And then next thing you know, I'm playing a huge win bet on him because I liked his odds. And I thought, well, surely he can't win. Maybe I'll I had 200 to win on him. When get $170, $180 back and just call, and move on. It just, when I look back on it, and you think about it that way, you're just like, what are you doing? Like it just a bad call on my part. And more than anything, I was really disappointed. I liked the Elite Power too. I thought that horse had a big chance here, but I still didn't think. Here's the thing: if he runs a big race and just gets nailed by Elite Power has been running really well. But CZ Rocket beat you. And let me be clear, like CZ Rocket and Jackie's Warrior were basically in the same position when they both were like trying to get home, and CZ Rocket outfinished them badly. And so that, to me, that's just that's embarrassing. Elite Power came flying from out of it a little bit, and he's been running good, so I could live with that. But when CZ Rocket beats you, it's rough.
When you identify something you don't like in a big favorite, it doesn't go away just because the main competition left. I don't think Elite Power is that good, but for this race, he was the right horse because the big favorite we had identified kind of just wasn't doing that great, and we thought was beatable. Then you get to the like this race, and you're like, God, Elite Power hadn't beat anybody. CZ Rocket, when's the last time he's won? Manny Waugh, kidding me? Obesos, Kamari. I don't like any of these horses, but you're still better off because you got to think, okay, why was I going against him in the first place? I didn't think he'd run like great. Well, it's still the Breeders' Cup, and if he doesn't run great, he's probably going to get beat. That's where you look. I don't think Elite Power is going to be any kind of great sprinter. I just think he was the right horse on the right day. He beat a bad group because when Jackie's Warrior didn't show up, it became a bad group. And this group was just like anything he had already been beating on this run that he's been on. So I don't want any of these horses out of this race. I think Dennis mentioned a horse named Strobe. I would take Strobe against any of these horses if they ran next out. So it is what it is, right?
It's just you hate it for him and the connections, and Asmussen, because it's like a horse just ran so good, and honestly, I've heard so many people, few people talk about how he's overrated, and I think that's ridiculous. He's won every race you need to win as a sprinter in the United States for basically 2 years in a row, and just has not been able to get the job done at the Breeders' Cup. For whatever reason, maybe whether it be last year, you can make the excuse of being too tired. Maybe he was this year again. I don't know. It's just you wanted to see him go out on top. We were with some people that sat near the Asmussen team during this race, and they were obviously just distraught with that. Because it just felt like I think honestly that was another part of it for me. I think I let my emotions a little bit go into it too much because I just felt like. It's gonna be his last race. He's gonna win his last race. He's gonna do it. This is gonna be he's going to come out and end his career with the Breeders' Cup win. He deserves it, and just didn't happen. So,
yep, no, and listen, unfortunately you can't lose 3 straight times at the Breeders' Cup as a big favorite, and for me, be considered like one of the all-time greats, right? Like he's good, and that's where it ends for me with him. Good horse. Not Matoli, not in that category.
He's an all-time good sprinter at Saratoga. How about that?
Well, he's probably at Saratoga. He may be one of the best. He is. Well, as far as accomplishment, he is the best of all time. He's a really, really nice horse who's going to retire and be remembered as a really nice horse. But he's not, he's not one of the best we've seen sprinting because he just could not get it done in the big spots.
All right. Race 8. Our boy, Modern Games, gets the job done in the Breeders' Cup Mile. Finally can cash in on this guy. Man, he just, you know what? This one felt after that disappointment of the sprint, having Modern Games come back and win again, and actually be able to bet him. Just it was such a kind of a weird rate. He kind of got pinched early on and like had a little trouble getting his stride going. So he ended up towards the back of the pack in the race. And then Buick just rode him. If you stop me if you've heard this before, just rode him perfectly. Just very patient the whole way around. And then whenever they kicked out, you knew when they kicked him out, and he was pretty far back when they kicked out at the top of the stretch, you just like, okay, this is over.
He was awesome. I mean, this is one of three that we would be really talking about a ton, if not for the big beast at the end. But yeah, he was awesome in this race. Got way behind, had to come very wide on that final turn, and man, he made up the ground, and he hauled the mail through the stretch to get by all those horses. He was flying. It's the redemption award. That's what Modern Games is this year. You know, we waited a year, and it's kind of funny. He was a single in a pick 5 last year for me, and I ended up losing that because of obviously what happened. But at least he helped me cash a pick 5 this year. So I guess what goes around comes around in racing this year with Modern Games. Like I said, major redemption to see him do this, see him run so well in the spot.
What's funny is this was such a forgettable race, and I don't mean that in a bad way, because I mean it wasn't. But because you had the next race, which was an unbelievable finish in the distaff, then you had the beast-like performance with Rebels Romance in the turf, and then you had, of course, the beast of all beast performance in the Classic. You kind of forgot about this one a little bit because of what all happened afterwards. But yeah, you're right. And hey, how about Ivar? This dude, you got to the point where you have to key him in like third and fourth of every race he runs in, whether it be some bullshit stakes race at Keeneland, or whether it be the Breeders' Cup, because he shows up every time. But he's like no threat to win ever, but he shows up. You got to give him credit for that.
Yeah, he definitely is one. If you go, hey, I like Ivar today, and you're talking about a win, you need your head examined. But as far as underneath, he is consistent. And you're right. It really doesn't matter what race. I really believe he might be the type, if you put him in an allowance today at Aqueduct, he's going to finish second, But he ran great. I mean, I see some people commenting, he did what Ivar does. If you bet him, that's exactly what you thought you were going to get out of him. So I don't know what it's going to take for him to win. I guess a class drop, he probably could get it done, but he just can't quite get up there and beat these types of horses. But let's face it, Kinross was third after a terrible trip. Ivar's not beating Kinross. He's too good. Cheryl Spite, that was a surprise. Ran very well again at Keeneland. In Modern Games, I mean, he's just not that kind of horse. But boy, he really, really ran well once again.
All right, so I want to get these next three are doozies. So let's get to these because I think there's a lot to talk about, obviously, with each and every one of them. Race 9, the Breeders' Cup Distaff, the filly, the mare, the Malathot, she gets the job done. Finally, this is a horse that just has continued to get better and better as the years gone on, and kind of turning into maybe it's like at first, everyone kept saying, well, Nest is the horse we thought Malathot was. Last year, well, Malathot kind of keeps getting a little bit better and finally gets the job done in this big race. Of course, didn't win last year when she looked like she was a winner. And by the way, Malathot never looked like she was going to get there in this race and somehow got her nose down to beat Blue Stripe. Clarier got third. And Nest, we'll start with Nest because Nest was obviously went off as a heavy favorite here. You and I both loved her in this spot. Just a combination of a brutal ride, too confident of a ride, I'd argue, and really just didn't show up either. So talk about what you thought of this race and Nest in particular.
The dumbass award of the Breeders' Cup goes to Irad. I don't know what he was doing in this race. I'm just stunned. Why is she second to last? Why are we 5-6 wide the entire time? I don't know. Like this is outrageous. The ride that Nest got in the spot, and I don't understand it. I just don't. And you know what? She may have lost anyway, but my God, she had no chance to win this race and no chance to show her best stuff. So really just a head scratcher from that regard. give a ton of credit to Malathot. Showed up, ran her race, got her trip. Boy, it took her forever to get there, but she finally did get the job done. So give her a ton of credit. Adding the blinkers kind of rejuvenated her career. You got to give Todd Pletcher a ton of credit for keeping this horse going. Looked like she was about ready to quit on him, and now she's a Breeders' Cup winner. So a lot of credit to Pletcher, a lot of credit to Malathot, and Irad, you're an idiot.
Well, I would like to know why they hit the backstretch and Malathot and Nest are side by side. Why is that?
It's like fucking stupidity.
So then he gets her up closer, but of course took some out of her to get her up there, and then never considers moving her inside whatsoever, and just keeps her rode her like he thought she was 10 lengths the best in the toughest race of her career, facing elders for the first time. It was just an asinine ride. And yeah, I mean, I don't want to take anything away from Malathot or the winner there, but shit, I mean, you just feel like another case that just you never really got to see the best of her because of the ride.
Yeah, I want to make it clear. I think Malathot ran fantastic. Blue Stripe, Clarier, they all ran fantastic. I'm not trying to knock them in the least bit, but when you're just out there floating around with nobody inside of you on the first turn, out there wide for no reason, and now people, I've heard people say, well, Saez was floating him wide on the backstretch the second turn. Why the fuck are you next to Saez? There's no reason for you to be next to Secret Oath. So no, it's not Saez's fault. It's your fault for being next to her because you have a lot more speed than she does. So I can't I don't know. I mean, I don't get on Twitter as much as I used to, but I haven't heard a lot of people being critical of this ride. It's one of the worst I've ever seen. And let me be very clear. I had Malathot in the pick 5. So it's not like this cost me a pick 5. This was just ridiculous what he did for no reason. I mean, again, if she's a closer and you get caught wide, and it's like, well, shit happens. But she's got the tactical speed to sit like third in this race and get the jump on these horses that came from behind. Malathot was ahead of Nest in this race. How?
Oh,
I mean, did you think going in Malathot would have better position than Nest?
No, absolutely not. And
it's crazy when you think about that.
Or Secret Oath, for that matter.
Well,
did you think Secret Oath would be ahead of
obviously, Nest? Yeah. I don't know how to get it. Oh, it's just like, what were you doing? It's unexplainable, and maybe she just was lackadaisical, didn't show up, whatever. Well, you could at least try to not float her 100 wide the whole race. That would be my rebuttal if it's like, well, she was flat. Well, you could at least try to save a little bit of ground on her. I don't know. It's just crazy. I don't know what the hell he was doing.
Well, and it's like, was she flat because she was flat, or was she flat because she had to go 1,000 more feet than the winner did, or whatever? I don't know. But yeah, that's one of those head scratchers where you look back, and obviously you take nothing away. In my opinion, you take nothing away from Nest and what in the year she's had, and obviously I still think she's the 3-year-old filly of the year. But yeah, it was just hard to kind of stomach that one. That one was a little bit like Golden Pal in a sense where you just felt like you never really got to see the best of what she was or they were.
Yeah, I mean, this was the Golden Pal thing. It's like, yeah, sometimes a starter might try to hold a guy, or accident. It's like an accident, right? The starter wasn't trying to hold the horse. It's an accident. This is pure stupidity. And that's why some of these other losses I'm not mad about. Like I was dumb some or got some bad luck or was flipped, but this one was pure stupidity from a guy that knows better, So that's why it's just like, it's just ridiculous to me. I don't know what the hell he was doing.
Yeah, and by the way, I don't know how Malathot. I know I said it earlier, but I'm watching it here in the background. I still don't know how Malathot won that race. Like, I midway to the stretch, well, I cannot believe Blue Stripe's about to win this thing. Like, Claire wins fine, Malathot wins fine, but Blue Stripe, I can't get on board with that. And how Malathot, that took forever to look at that too. That was an unbelievable finish.
Well, I think what happened was, Blue Stripe is Blue Stripe. She's gonna, she's not really supposed to win a race like that. I think she was hanging a little bit. And Clairiere, I have a feeling if she could have got a prep under her belt after that disaster at Saratoga, and I realize they couldn't, I think she probably would have won. But she literally was running off of a layoff. I think she ran as well as she could, considering the circumstances. I think Joelle gave her a great ride. And Clairiere probably, if under normal circumstances, would have won the race. But those two ahead of Mount Thought just couldn't quite finish it. And she was able to get the job done because she just kept the task, kept going, kept grinding.
Yep. I mean, she definitely showed that she was not what Clairiere, that is, like what we saw last time out from her. So just a weird performance that day. Obviously something happened that day in the gate, and then she didn't run a race, but yeah, definitely bounced back. But yeah, you'd like to see her get one more race under her belt. I mean, yeah, Nest, obviously it's hard to take much away from her there, obviously, but her jockey did win the awards. So that's good for her in that case, right?
Yep, exactly.
Let's go to the Breeders' Cup Turf, race 10. Rebels Romance, my friend, was dominant. This horse, man, out of all the of the 2 days, this was the one that he got 6-1 on him here, and one that you and I both picked on top, both thought was the best horse of the race, both thought it was the best Appleby horse of the race, and then I'll be honest, like I got way into my head in this race as it got closer, and you heard the talk from Appleby that he liked Nation's Pride better coming in here, that Rebels Romance would struggle with the turns, and obviously the way the horse was bet, the horse went off as a favorite, Nation's Pride, and the other one was off at 6-1. It got in my head, and this was my top pick into Flightline. You were getting 10-1. Let me be very clear about that. You were getting 10-1 on Rebels Romance into Flightline. I mean, that's just insane. And I'm like, this is the biggest regret, and why you need to have a playbook that you stick with the entire day and don't let the outside noise kind of affect you, because I wanted to play a $50 straight double. So basically what you're saying is you're getting 10-1 on Flightline, which returns $500. I didn't do it because I was getting talked off of this horse because of what was said about Nation's Pride. And so that was the biggest regret. But man, about the race itself, when they turned for home, I mean, this horse just ate up the ground.
I can't really explain what happened with the trainer speak and the jockey situation. I don't know. I don't know why they played games with this. I'm just really, really relieved that I did not change my tune here and stuck with Rebels Romance. You mentioned gobbled up the ground. That's why I picked him. That's why I was so high on him in this race. You watch the replays of these European runners, and Silver Knot was very impressive to me and ran well, but Rebels Romance, I just kept watching his replays, and it's like, they're not going to hold him off if he fires that kind of race. And you watch Nation's Pride, and it's like, I don't see it. I don't know why that they think Nation's Pride's a better horse here. Rebels Romance has that turn of foot that you want. And thank God, like I said, stuck to it, and he showed it. He ran fantastic. He's really, really, really a really nice horse, and he kind of finished the year undefeated. He was winning Group 1s over there, and it's like, come on, Nation's Pride. He's facing our 3-year-olds, and this horse is winning Group 1s. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the games they tried to play. I don't know the explanation, but I was really happy to see Rebels Romance come through and win.
Well, what's funny is, if you could have stopped it at the top of the stretch and said, okay, this is where he's going to be, you've been like, all right, well, I feel better now, because even though he was like 8 wide turning for home, he kind of had, once he straightened out, you're like, oh, this is over. Mm-hmm. Like, this horse is just eating these other horses here. And he just, the longer the race went. And by the way, you look back, Warlike Goddess ran awesome, but Warlike Goddess saved every inch of ground in this race and went up the rail and came inside and kind of just kept, I mean, she ran great. And I mean, what Rebels Romance 8 wide in the turn? Like that's how the difference of those two horses and this horse just went right by her. That's how impressive this was. And Mishriff, I thought, helped a little bit with Rebels Romance because he was just to the outside, and those two turning for home were very wide turning for home. But maybe it helped keep Rebels Romance just inside just enough to where once he turned for home, this race was over. And that was the thing Appleby did say. He said once this horse is in the straightaway, like this horse is very, very talented. He just was worried about those turns and maybe losing too much ground in the turns. And maybe Mishriff helped enough. Mishriff, folded there. And I think that the big turn hurt him. But man, Rebels Romance, he was awesome.
He was, and maybe that's what it was. Maybe they just didn't think he would handle these courses or this course very well. But you're right. Once they turned for home, I thought, well, this thing's over. Like he's right there, and if it's a sprint for home and he's sitting right there, they're not going to outsprint him. And yeah, look, David brought up he's got to be the favorite, I would think, without the games that were being played, because if you're a replay watcher, and I am definitely for the European runners, and listen, you were on the horse too. It's like you watch the replays. It's like, yeah, I'm not going to overthink this one. I think he's good. You think he's the best horse. So yeah, thanks, I guess, to Appleby for playing the games. I mean, I don't really think he's the type that's going to lie. I was on record last year, just kept saying he was very honest.
I know.
So I don't know. That's
what's funny about it. You're like, just listen to this. You even said it earlier. This for the Breeders' Cup, like, just wait till he comes out and says something about one of his horses and just listen. And I remember on Friday, he came out with the quotes after, I think it was after Silver Knot, maybe. And he mentioned Nation's Pride, and he mentioned someone else, I don't remember, but he never even mentioned Rebels Romance as far as the way the turf was playing and how they will feel good about tomorrow's or whatever it was. And we all, we read those amongst our group, and we're like, well, that's weird, And then you see the video later the next day, you're like, well, he doesn't even like Rebels Romance as much as he likes Nation's Pride. He's got Buick on it. It's just all that kept kind of circulating in my head, where it was enough to give me enough pause to not go hammer that exactly. Because then I thought, okay, I'll play the two Applebys into Flightline. Well, I believe the Nation's Pride one into him was like 5-1 or maybe even lower. Yeah. And so and then of course you're playing two in this race, you're cutting your value in half. And so I just couldn't get on board with doing that. And I wanted to have the stones to play the Rebels Romance singled into Flightline double at 10-1, but it just kept coming back. And again, that's my lesson here is if you have an opinion, and you're right, I thought the same thing as you. Like, I thought this is the best horse. So I kept waiting to hear all the accolades and the amazing things that he would say about the horse, and it didn't come. And you're like, uh-oh, what did I not see here? And so just stick with your opinion and bet it, and don't care what the outside is saying. So that was my biggest regret, because that would have been a huge return here. And anytime you can say you can get 10-1 on a horse like Flightline, kind of kicking myself for not doing that.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, you got to trust your eyes, and that's, like I said, thank God, because I could have changed easily. I thought, no, I'm not going to do it. I've seen these horses anyway.
All right, the main event. Lots of big performances leading up to this race, but nothing, frankly, like we've ever seen before here. The Race 11, the Breeders' Cup Classic. Dude, I mean, I've watched this. This is one race I have watched 100 times since the Breeders' Cup. And just continue. I simply wrote down for today's show, I said, you're not supposed to do what he did. Like, you just simply, you watch that race over and over. And not only did it unfold exactly, if you listen to any of our shows prior to the Breeders' Cup, this race unfolded exactly like we thought it might, that you would have two races happening, and you did. At one point, Flightline, who was in second behind Life is Good, he was 13 links ahead of Hot Rod Charlie. That group was. And then when he passed him, they were still, Life is Good was 11 links ahead of any of these horses. These two were in a complete game all to themselves. And maybe the moment of the Breeders' Cup, in my opinion, was when you kind of thought for half a second, like he's gonna have to work to get by Life is Good today. Because Life is Good brought it. You see Pratt do a little look back to see how far ahead they are of everyone else. And he's not even made his move yet on the horse, by the way. And this is over. And it was like Flightline just was unbelievable.
It was awesome. Yeah, I mean, it definitely brought us back in time to 2015 to Keeneland when American Pharoah won. I mean, he looked just like him in the post parade, and he ran a lot like him too. You're right. Definitely, Life is Good. Said, hey, I'm going to go out and do my thing, and give them credit. They said, we're going to go out and do our things. And Irad said once, he said, I look back and I'm like, my goodness, he's right there. Like we should be kicking clear of everybody, but he's right there. And I heard Mike Smith after the race, he said, a normal horse, when they chase a pace like that, like Flightline did, they're coming back to you. He said, like, I knew he wouldn't come back to me, but normally you're watching those two horses go and you're like, okay, one's going too fast and one's chasing the one going too fast. We're in a good spot, but he said that horse is just ridiculous. He just he won't get tired. And it was amazing how you watch the first turn and Flightline's putting some pressure on Life is Good. And I'm sitting there going, oh boy, do not go out there and go with him early. That could be bad. It didn't. Then when they asked him to sit off, he just bumped right back, 2 lengths off, just stalked him, waited patiently. And like you said, Life is Good was running so smoothly, turning for home. You're kind of like, well, I don't know. He's going to have to go get him. And then you said a little look back. That was like 2 seconds of a look back. That was a look back that you noticed from where we were standing, way away from that far turn. And you knew then, well, we're really going to see something quite incredible. And we did. He threw away Life is Good like he was total trash. And then, like we thought, Life is Good kind of packed it in after that. And then it was just a scramble for second because nobody was going to get close to Flightline.
What do you think it's like to be Pratt there in that case where you're like, you don't know exactly how far ahead you are of the group, but you know that you're on a push button horse that is ready to go when you're ready to go. And you look back and you're 10, 12 lengths ahead of everybody else, and you haven't even said go yet. I mean, just it has to be how unbelievable feeling for a $6 million Breeders' Cup Classic for a horse that hasn't lost. And that's the thing, like just true brilliance. And you just know, okay, time to go. Just an unbelievable performance. I mean, there's really I'm running out of words to describe this horse, but just unbelievable.
Think about the horse that was ahead of him, who he had no care about whatsoever, right? Like that's why he's looking back. He literally is saying, well, that horse ahead of me, I will pass in 2 jumps. Is there anybody coming from behind me that I have to worry about? That's why he looked. So let's analyze the horse that was ahead of him. He's never lost in this country. He beat last year's Breeders' Cup Classic winner by the length of the stretch in the Pegasus at Gulfstream. Life is Good is one of the best horses we've had in the last few years. Flightline made him look like an idiot out there. It wasn't even a thought in Pratt's mind that Life is Good would be tough to catch. He never gets caught. And he was like, yeah, whatever. I mean, Life is Good literally lost 1 race in Dubai his whole career. And Flightline just tossed him aside. And so, yeah, to be on a horse like that, I have no idea how that must feel. And again, once Pratt gave him the go, it was like a second, Jared, and Life is Good was in second place. And it's like, oh, well, that wasn't even a challenge for him,
I mean, the call was just like at the moment he's like, here, it's gonna be these two to battle it out. The next thing you know, it's like Flightline's gone. It's just there was no battle. It was just when he decided he was ready to go. And my bold take of this race is, the more I've watched it, is if Flightline wasn't in this race, I think Life is Good may have won by 6+. I really believe that. So let's think about that for half a second. The horse that I think would have won by open links just got brushed aside by the winner. and ultimately did falter because this horse was being pushed by an absolute monster and had to go maybe a second faster in each fraction that he wanted to based off of that horse. And we've said it all along, like if there's one thing about Life is Good, he's going to throw it down every step of the way because he wants to be on the lead. He's not maybe, I want to say he's dumb, but he's not smart enough like Flightline to where I can just kind of dictate how I want to run this race. No, he's going to go. And because you had Flightline pushing him the whole way, he had to go faster. So if you think he's cut him, because the bottom line is they were still 13 links ahead of everybody else. So even if he's not in the lead, or if he's not 13 links, he's 7 links. I mean, we've seen him do that before where he just gets ahead of everybody else and they can't catch him. I don't think they would have caught him here if there's no Flightline in this race.
I guess if Flightline wasn't in the race, it would have been Hot Rod Charlie, maybe with that speed to try to get up there with Life is Good. I think we kind of saw what happened when there's a horse with elite speed and Hot Rod Charlie matched up in last year's Breeders' Cup. They just let him go, right. And they would have just let Life is Good go. Like I said, it wouldn't have been, 13, but he would have been 6, 7, 8 ahead. And guess what? If he's only 6 or 7, 8 ahead, he's going considerably slower up front, which means he has plenty left in the tank when he turns for home. I'm with you. That's why I kept saying it all week. Life is Good is the second most likely horse to win, and he's also the horse you want completely out of your tries and exactas because he either wins or he's done.
And JL, I don't necessarily disagree with you, and I think there's a million ways you can go look at it. My point of it is I think he's has a huge chance of winning this race, and not to just dismiss him as early speed or quick speed early on. Like, I think we need to make sure we understand just how good Flightline is and dismissed of this horse who I can't argue would have not been the favorite to win this race and maybe won the race had Flightline not been. And that's what he does to horses, Flightline, that is. And past that, I mean, the bummer, I guess, of the race was, we had Taba. I thought Taba would get second here, and just he damn near did. Just Olympiad. I mean, I think we can all agree that the odds on 27-1 Olympiad is nutty. 26-1. Way too much value there. It was good to see him run that well. We really wanted Taba. We had a huge bet on that double or on that exacta as well. But it really didn't matter at that. When you saw Flightline kind of skirt away, all I was looking at is how many links he's going to win by.
Yep, absolutely. That's just it. I mean, Olympiad ran great for second. Taba ran very well to get third. Rich Strike put up a good performance, I thought, for fourth. And so you got to give credit to those 3 horses. They ran hard. They just were no match. And they were, like I said, it was a race of their own for second. And then finally, Epicenter gets pulled up, Vandoff out of this race. Ended up getting injured, but he is okay. He's going to be just fine. Had surgery. Everything looks good now for him. For Stallion Duty, it was sad to not see him kind of, where's he going to unfold in that second flight of horses coming in behind Flightline. But good news is he's fine.
Yeah, I mean, that was a shocker for sure. We didn't really see it happen live, obviously. But then, of course, once you realize who it was, you're like, oh, shit, But yeah, he's fine. Had surgery. And that was such an amazing. They said that he got, they basically took him off the track, went literally off the track, never stopped, went to the ridden riddle, and just immediately went into. I mean, they acted like this with this horse, and that was awesome. And that's a really amazing thing about the race being in Keeneland as well. And they saved his life because of it. And he's gonna be fine. And obviously go to Stallion Duty now, and hopefully he produces a bunch of little epicenters that are just like he is or he was. But yeah, that was kind of the bummer of the race, because you would like to at least seen what he can do. There's no way he was going to win by any means, but maybe he could have made a fight with Taba and Olympiad there for second. I mean, all right. So I'll ask the question before I end this thing, because that's the next question, right? Flightline's done. He's been retired. He never lost a race. How do we rank this horse? And I know everyone cares about rankings, but is he the best? Is he the best horse of all time?
No. I think he is one of the more talented horses we'll ever see. He's up there top 4 or 5 for me with most talented horses of all time for that I've seen in person, or I've seen since 2007. But no, I mean, he ran 6 times and that's it. And that you can't make up for that. There's only 6 races to look at. I mean, as far as is he the greatest horse that's ever ran, less than 10 times? Quite possibly. Yes. he's fantastic, but his career will always kind of, hinder how you look at him. But from a talent standpoint, he certainly is one of the best I've ever seen.
I'll say this. I think out of all the horses we've seen, there's no, you can't, we can't compare horses. We can't compare a Flightline to Secretariat or whatever, because you just can't. How do you even compare those two? But I will say this. Out of all the horses we've seen in person or just in our generation with the Arrogates and the Pharaohs and the Justifies, I think Flightline is the only horse that I would, if it was okay, put your best horse up against Secretariat and let's watch him run. However you can make that happen. Flightline's the only horse where I would say he might be able to do it. I'll leave it at that. I'm not going to say he could, but he's the only horse out of all of them that I feel like I had enough confidence in and I think the only reason I say that is because we have no idea how good he is. Think about it. All 6 of his races, he was never out of second gear, ever. He never lost, but he never won a race by less than I don't know, or 6 lengths maybe was his shortest margin. He just beat the shit out of every field he faced, including 4 straight Grade 1 wins, including the Classic. So I'm not going to sit here and say that he can beat a horse like Secretariat, but I do think he leaves that conversation open because of how untested he seemingly was.
I agree. I think back to this. There's no horse, even Flightline now, that I was more high on than Arrogate after he won in Dubai. Because he had went on that run where he won the Travers in an unbelievable Flightline-like performance. He ran down California Chrome in the Breeders' Cup. He destroyed the first ever Pegasus, and he came from last to win the Dubai World Cup. At that moment right there, pause time. He's the greatest thing we've ever seen, right?
Yeah.
If he would have retired right after that, we would have thought this is the greatest thing we've ever seen. When you continue to run, it's harder and harder and harder to keep that elite form. So now that Flightline is done at the peak and we're not going to see him try to push the limits and keep going, that's what sticks in my mind. Because if Arrogate would have retired right there and then Flightline does what he does, I think you would sit here and say, well, I think Arrogate's still a little bit better. But
no,
since
right.
he ran other races, everybody's going to
the more body of work you see. The more body of work you see, the more you learn, and obviously things can go wrong. And I think a negative for Flightline is his health. He never could stay healthy enough to be an all-time great, because I think that has to be a factor. A horse the old Secretariats and those horses that ran all the time. There's something to be said about that. But from a true talent perspective, when you're talking about putting up the best of their performances, Arrogate's Dubai, Flightline's Classic, or maybe Pacific Classic, wherever, whatever it is, those races, Secretariat's Belmont, when you put all those in my mind, at least they're in the he's in the ballpark of conversation, and that's enough for me. So I'm not going to. I don't need
standpoint. From a talent standpoint, there's no question. He's in the ballpark of some of the all-time greats. So there's no doubt. You can't deny what he's doing. But again, when you only race 6 times, you know it better than anybody. Anytime you line up in the sport, you can get beat. And all it would take was one loss for this horse, and everybody would be like, see, he wasn't that good. So again,
we even talked about it before the race. We're if he loses here, Flightline will just be a horse that was hey, he was really good for those races, but after that, we don't really talk about him a bunch.
See, that's why I always look at American Pharoah to be better than Justify when you talk about Triple Crown horses, because American Pharoah kept going, and sure, he lost the Travers, but fuck, he won the Haskell, he won the Classic. He was a winner as a 2-year-old. that body of work means more to me, than just, well, we got him for 4 or 5 races and he looked great, and then we're off into the sunset. I mean, how hard it is to win these races. He never went to Saratoga. He only raced, in one grade 1 at Del Mar. He didn't have, multiple years of running at Del Mar in big races, and on and on and on. Right. So, especially, a horse that he couldn't run in the 3-year-old races. And so that glamour of the resume is gone. Again, talent wise, fantastic. Resume is always going to make me go, no, I can't say like he was one of the all-time greats, in the history of the game.
By the way, I believe 168 million. Is that what he's worth now? Because he sold 2.5%.
Yeah, I think it was 184 million.
Whatever
2.5% sold for 4.6 million.
There you go. So he's kind of worth a lot. 200K a pop now. Stud fee. So yeah, I don't thanks Dennis. 184 million this horse is worth. If you look at that, you have no question of. Well, I honestly, when they retired him, I was like, I would have done it too. I mean, shit, I would love to have him stick around, but why would you? You have nothing to gain, anything to lose by having him stick around. And unfortunately, that's part of the the issues with our sport that you can just retire now and be worth 184 million and just stop racing. Why would you continue? So, anyways, he's a very proper bow on a fantastic 2022 Breeders' Cup World Championships. Yeah, that was that's the thing. Yeah, it's kind of a bummer too, right? Because it's like after seeing such a unbelievable performance and just world-class horse, that it's like you kind of have like we'll never see that again. So now what? What do we have to look forward to?
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, it's like, wow, what's next year going to be?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, shit. You look back and you're like, okay, Flightline's done. Olympiad, I haven't heard what they're going to do with him. Table will be back. Rich Strike will be back. Life is Good's done. Hot Rod Charlie, he might be done. I mean, Epicenter, he's done. So, like, when you look at this field, a lot of these horses, I mean, is Taba now your favorite to win the Classic next year? I mean, I don't know, but it seems crazy. But see, like, by default, a lot of these horses are who's going to win and how, what's it going to take to win? It's certainly not going to take a Flightline effort. So,
yep, no, we're back to normal next year. I don't know. I think Taba is the favorite right now to win the Pegasus. I don't know past that, but you would think he's going to be tough in that race. I don't know who else. I don't know who else all is coming back, but yeah, he's going to look good in that race.
200K. What do you get paid?
Yep. Not 200K.
No.
Not
even at your prime. Not even at your prime. You weren't getting 200.
No, just short.
$2 maybe, but
yeah, maybe.
If you're lucky,
that's illegal.
I would take it to it. I would take it $2.
I would take $1.
Well, this day and age, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, it's all the time. Check us out at racenews.com for our free picks and our premium selections on our products page. Click the Get Racing News premium button at the menu at racenews.com to learn more. Make sure you stick around for the Magic Mike show later on this afternoon. They will be doing the Del Mar. Del Mar's back for the fall meet. Del Mar Saturday late pick 5 preview. If you want some more analysis of that, make sure you stick around and check out the Magic Mike show. Well, racenews.com is your destination site for all free horse racing picks to all the major horse racing tracks. We're on Twitter at racing_news, Instagram and Facebook. Find all episodes of Blinkers Off and Magic Mike by visiting our podcast page, Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, all the places you listen to podcasts. We are on there. Again, the Magic Mike show, late pick 5 at Del Mar. Del Mar going Halterman. So it's good to have that track back and a little action as we kind of get back into the regular swing of things post Breeders' Cup.
For sure.
How are you excited for your trip?
Yes, I am. I'm excited. Eureka Springs. If you're gonna be in Eureka Springs this weekend, come find me. We'll have some fun. I've never been. I've never been. I've never been, so I don't know what to expect.
Speaking of that, I want to say thank you, and it really, it means a lot to us. All the people. I mean, we had tons and tons of people come up to us, take pictures, say hi, whatever at the Breeders' Cup that are fans of the site. Those of you listen to Blinkers Off or some of our videos, or subscribers or whatever. It was so cool to see everybody, and that's one of our favorite things to do at the Breeders' Cup or any big event, is see all the people that that are fans that help us do what we do. And so it was really cool to meet all you guys and hang out with a bunch of you guys. We had a hell of a time with the group on, especially on Saturday, even though it was kind of going downhill a little bit from some of our betting perspectives. Flightline got it back, and of course, it was a fun time. We had a good time with all you guys, so we appreciate it.
It was great to see everybody. Like I said, greatly appreciate everybody for watching and supporting the site. Yeah, it was great. We met a lot of new people, and that's kind of the most fun thing about going to the Breeders' Cup, the Derby, and obviously like Saratoga over the summer. You meet a lot of people as well. So yeah, thank everybody for watching, and thank everybody for saying hi. It was just a ton of fun.
All right, I'll let you get on the road, Halterman. I know you got lots of plans. You probably got an early dinner on your hands, maybe a little dessert. You probably go to bed by about 9 o'clock.
I haven't heard yet. I have not heard yet what we're doing.
This is going to be a little bit different trip than we had.
Yes,
out in the frat house.
Well, now my brother is going though, so. We'll see. My brother likes to have a good time, so see what happens.
Does he?
He does.
Yeah. Like Mike Somich kind of good time, or just good time?
I don't. No, not Mike Somich good time. But yes, he does like to have a good time. So we'll see. It could be good.
Oh boy, yeah, that was fun. Anyways, I'll leave it at that. All right, guys. Thanks for everybody for tuning in to Blinkers Off. Again, make sure you stick around later for the Magic Mike show. Until next time, I'm Jared Welch. He's Aaron Halterman. Good luck this weekend, guys.
And take a good look at this, because you're not going to see this too often. Maybe never again. Flightline.